Hey there, guys and ghouls. In this episode of Living Dead Garage, we're working on this beautiful 1965 Chevrolet Impala. We're doing some minor repairs and things may have escalated fairly quickly. So I had a buddy of a buddy who asked if I wanted to work on a 65 Impala, and I said absolutely I would. I like working on this stuff, especially when it's not rusty. Said it had a pretty severe oil leak and some wiring issues, so started digging into it, and the oil pan is leaking severely. No surprise considering that it's chrome. So we could have replaced the gasket while the engine was in the car, could have lifted it up a little bit, dropped it, blah blah blah. But the pan was installed incorrectly. I'll show you in a little bit why. It was just best just to pull the engine out completely. And with something old like this, it's super easy to pull the engine. And me and my buddy Jeff tore this out in about 2 hours yesterday and just blew it apart. Probably one of the easiest motor pulls we've done today. So, with that being said, let's take a look at this mint green beauty here. Interior is ugly but beautiful at the same time. I'm not a fan of the green, if I'm being honest, but it is done fairly well. I'll give them that. Very, very nice. Oh, there we go. So moving on to the engine. Chrome oil pan. We never like to see those. Also had chrome valve covers, which are over there. It has been weeping oil like crazy. You should have seen it before I power washed it because there was virtually no orange visible. You can tell by the timing cover that it was very poorly done, the gaskets I mean. And what I was saying about the pan is each bolt hole was over torqued, and you can see that they're indented. You see that? And they had the old cork gasket with high temp orange RTV. Incorrect. Wrong. The more I dig into this thing, the more I see wrong with it. And it hurts my brain. But luckily, it's in our hands now, and it's going to get a good, proper treatment. New gaskets. I got an oil pan coming. Valve covers, since those are all warped and rusty. I'm going to pull this pan off and show you what we discovered, which is extremely alarming. And I'll get to that here in a second. Alright, let's pull this pan off and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Ow. Damn it. First injury of the day. Got some sludge in the bottom of the pan. Typically we don't like to see that, but it's not the worst I've seen. Nothing to be too alarmed about, but what is alarming, I don't know, I'll give you a second. Can you see it? It's not so much here, but maybe here. Yep, you guessed it. The oil pickup screen was floating or swimming in the oil pan. And as you can see, it has taken a little bit of damage, and you can also see on the crank here where it has been hitting. This engine ran like a sewing machine, didn't make any noise, fired right up. I didn't hear this thing banging around. I'm sure it was only at higher RPMs. But we pulled the oil pan off and both our jaws just hit the floor. I've never seen this before. With that being said, we got an oil pump and a new pickup screen on the way. Obviously, this is not good. There's some very cheap machining marring on here that was not done correctly, obviously, which caused this to just, fall off and go for a swim. So, problem 1 of 35 we discovered. I'll spin the engine over and I'll show you what else we got going on here. Moving on to the top end, we did look through here. Everything seemed to look fine, but let's see if I can find one here. When I spin this push rod, if I can get a grip on it, some of these push rods are actually bent. You can kind of, hopefully you can kind of see that. Yep, see that? She's a little wibbly wobbly. Not supposed to be that way. I think this one's significantly worse. No, that one's good. This is a bad one. I can't even spin it a full 180. It's so bent. Yep, see that? It's about a handful of bent push rods is what I'm saying. Which I've seen before in earlier hearse videos. We had that issue. That engine, I should say, there was 3 or 4 bent push rods, but the engine ran phenomenally, which blew my mind. But I should have some extra ones laying around. We're just going to swap the bad ones. The other ones are fine. No reason to replace them all. Remember, it only needs what it needs. You know, we don't need to start throwing a bunch of money at this. Mainly, we're just worried about the oil leaks, push rods, and making this thing look pretty again. So the plan is, we're going to pull that harmonic balancer off, front timing cover, and I'm going to get some Chevy orange paint, clean this thing up, just repaint it, put some new stuff on it, throw her back in there, send her down the road. So with that being said, we're going to rip these 2 components off, start getting this thing cleaned up for some paint. Well, problem number 32 on this project, those threads are absolutely destroyed. I don't know who worked on this thing before, but whoever you are fired. All right, now that we have that front timing cover off, I'm gonna go ahead and take this drill with a little wire wheel and go to town on this thing, try and get all that loose paint off and get it ready for paint. All right, here we go. All right, well, Jeff showed up. He's coming to help. He's gonna work on getting this engine bay cleaned up. I power washed it, but we still got some heavy sludge to scrape off of this this carrier cross member here. Got some rust barrier chassis paint here. Stuff works pretty good. Should match this satin black in the engine bay. And while he's doing that, I'm gonna finish getting the engine ready for paint, and I'll start brushing some paint on there. So yeah, let's get to it. Got the engine wire wheeled, got most of the loose stuff off. I'm gonna go ahead and spray it down with some degreaser, wipe it down, get as clean as I can. And I'm gonna run a torch, bottle torch around it, kind of burn a lot of the oil and moisture out of it, because with that being cast iron, it's very porous. And if you paint over oil and moisture, it's never gonna last. So we're gonna try and give it its best fighting chance. Degrease it, heat it up, and then brush some paint on. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to take a bottle torch to this cast iron block in order to burn the oils and moisture out of there, because there's very porous material and the paint will never stick. I'm going to demonstrate what I mean right here. You can see moisture building up around the flame, and right there it's starting to burn off. Kind of a time-consuming process, but it makes for a better paint job, so it's worth spending the time. And you could probably use a bigger torch for this to speed up the process, but we got time here. We're just going to do it this way. Okay, so got her all the moisture burnt out of the block here. I have this spare intake laying around. It's the exact same one that came off of it, just so that I can get paint in these little crevasses, you know, so it's all uniform and whatnot. But yep, I am going to give this a quick blow off with the air hose and start brushing some paint on. So I'm basically just using some tractor paint here, nothing special. Tractor paint's pretty thick, oil-based. Enamel should last pretty long. We'll see. Pretty close to the Chevy orange that we need, so. All right, we got first coat down. Kind of a sloppy paint job, but that's fine. You know, I'll clean off the gasket surfaces before I put on the new parts. But yeah, one more coat and I think we'll be looking pretty good. I like this tractor paint because you don't have to mask a bunch of shit off and it goes on thick, so it should last a little longer than the rattle can stuff. Jeff did a very good job cleaning up the engine bay, got it all painted up nice. Night and day difference. I'm gonna go ahead and take these accessory pulleys and sandblast them and give them a quick tss, make them brand new again while we're waiting on parts. Oh, we got parts blasted, cleaned, hung up, spray them up real quick, and those will be ready for install later. Before I forget, one thing I did notice while painting, that one right there does not look like the rest. That cast has been broken before and somebody repaired it, question mark? This thing's definitely had a hard life, but it's in good hands now, thankfully. Well, good morning, guys and ghouls. It's been a couple days, still waiting on a few parts. But we're gonna get back at her and start working on this here 327 for the Impala. I've been painting parts in the meantime, getting stuff cleaned up. Right now, I'm gonna start working on getting these bent push rods out of here and replaced with not bent ones. So I'll give you a little update on what's going on here. So I've gone through and marked with an orange paint marker all the bent push rods. So we got 4, 5, 6 on the passenger side, 1, 2, and just 2 on the driver. They're not crazy bent, but you spin them and they wobble like I showed earlier in the footage. It's slightly concerning. It's not going to really affect the engine immediately, but in the long run it's going to eventually wear out those lifter seats and all that stuff. So I'm gonna start pulling those and swapping them out with new ones, and then we'll go through and reset the valve lash. I'll show you guys how to do that. Super easy, foolproof way to do it. Over here we do have some parts so far. Got motor mounts, water pump. We got the oil pickup screen, the oil pump, oil pan gasket, water pump gasket, intake gasket, valve cover gaskets, hardware, spark plug wires, timing cover gasket, and I believe we're just waiting on a brand new oil pan and valve covers. I'm going to go through and pull all the bad push rods out right now. I'm going to demonstrate to you a good way to tell if they're bent, even if it's kind of hard to see with the eye. Okay, we got our push rods here, and more evidence of somebody being in this engine before. We got one oddball here. This one, as you can see, is it's got pressed in balls at the end, and these are completely solid all the way through. Which I guess ain't gonna hurt nothing, but it's just like, come on, man. Why do you gotta cobble stuff together? But here is the best way to see if your push rods are bent. You get a nice flat surface, and then you simply just roll it across. You can hear that whoop, 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 whoop. Bent, even more bent, 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 so on and so forth. The other thing you can do is you can take a drill, not an impact, but put one of these in the end of the chuck and then spin it, and that'll also tell you if it's bent. I'm going to go digging through a drawer and see if I can get some of the same length push rods here to throw back in the engine. All right, digging through my stash, I found a lightly used, not bent set of matching push rods. They're the pressed in kind. So I think what I'm gonna do is replace all of them with just this whole brand new set here, because let's face it, it's a 65 Impala. This thing's had a hard life. I think it deserves some new used push rods that are all the same. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the rest of these and jam the new ones in. Okay, so before you put push rods in, you're gonna wanna look through them, make sure there's no obstructions, and I always like to take some brake clean with the straw and just give her a little, make sure there's no obstructions, because oil gets pushed up through through the lifters, up to the rockers, to the valves, so on and so forth. If there's obstructions, we're not gonna have oiling, bad things happen, shockers explode, you get the point. So I'm gonna clear all these out, and then we're gonna throw them in the engine. All right, so now that we got all the push rods in, what we're gonna do is tighten down these rocker nuts until we have zero lash on every single one of these. And what zero lash means is I'll tighten down the nut here, and it'll put pressure against the push rod here, and once I start feeling some resistance as I twist it, that's zero lash. Once that's all set, we're gonna go through and we'll rotate the engine a quarter turn, go through, set the lash, quarter turn, set the lash, quarter turn, set the lash, rinse and repeat. And we'll do that until we spin the engine over 2 revolutions, and then just keep checking them periodically until we have zero lash. It's pretty much a foolproof way of doing it. There's other ways that you can see there's other ways in the Haynes manual where you set the engine to top dead center, you do this valve and that valve and the other valve, and this, it just gets confusing. And it can be done that way, but in my opinion, it takes a lot longer. And then the way I just explained it, a lot easier, foolproof, even for an idiot like myself. So if I can do it, I'm sure you can figure it out too. I'm just going to get these close with the impact, and then I'll go to a hand wrench. This is just to save time. You really shouldn't be doing setting valve lash with an impact. Okay, another rookie mistake / teaching moment. These are the push rods that came out of the engine. These are the ones that I had laying around. Can you spot the difference? Me too. These are made for a roller cam system. which is why they're so much shorter, because roller push rods rather are taller than your flat tappet push rods like we have in this engine. So unfortunately, these aren't going to work. So there. Watch and learn from my dumb mistakes. All right, I hunted down the correct size push rod, so we're back on track. All right, I'm actually going to switch gears here. I'm going to go ahead and put the timing cover on and the harmonic balancer and maybe the crank pulley. It'll just be easier for me to spin the engine around with that the threads being messed up in that crank snout. I don't really want to jam a bolt in there and put all that stress on there. I'd rather use the pulley. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that on there, and then we'll get back to setting valve lash. All right, I got the valve cover, got the timing cover on. Now we're gonna go ahead and install our crank harmonic balancer. Now keep in mind these threads in here are very marred up and destroyed, so I don't know if this is going to work properly. It doesn't seem promising, but as you can see here, somebody already beat the ever-living hell out of it with a hammer to get it on, so we're going to try and avoid that because that's really hard on the crank bearings. I'm going to give her the old college try, even though I didn't go to college. Well, these threads are also destroyed, so this might not work either. Oh boy. Worst case scenario, we could probably heat the pulley up, try and help it slide on there a little better, get some expansion. Okay, I got the harmonic balancer on with the pulley. I'm going to go through and take set all the valves to 0 lash, and then we'll turn it a quarter. I'll repeat, turn it a quarter, rinse and repeat like I said earlier. And then the valve lash will be set. Right now I don't have any up and down movement, but I can still turn it pretty easily. What you're going to want to do It's tight. Oh, now I got some resistance. Perfect. Same here. Turn it a little bit. Nope, got resistance, zero lash. Oh, this valve is opening. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but that valve is opening so it doesn't go down as much. And once we spin the engine, that valve is going to, or the lifter is going to drop, and then we will have a loose rocker again until we spin it another quarter turn. And then once all that's said and done, we'll go through and give them half to a full turn. Some people like 3/4. You can do whatever you want. So everybody has their preference. We're probably going to give her a full turn and see how she likes it. We can always back them off a little later on if we feel it's too much. And move on to the other side. Okay, now that that's all done, see these are fairly snug. We have some resistance on each. Well, I'm going to go ahead, spin the engine quarter of the way. Oh, there we go. That lifter dropped. That one dropped. And we're going to go through and set the valve lash on all the loose ones. And it kind of makes sense to you keep going around and around and around. Eventually all the lashes are going to be set. So I want to finish doing this off camera. I think you guys get it, and then we'll be back. All right, we got the valve lash set. Now we're getting ready to drop the intake on. Jeff's cleaning up the surfaces here where the gaskets are going to meet. I have the intake cleaned up as best as possible. Good enough for who it's for. So yeah, we're working on that. We're still waiting on an oil pan to show up and valve covers, so we're kind of just piddling away at what we can do. Once we get the intake on, we could probably flip this thing upside down and replace the oil pump and pickup screen. I got the motor mounts on, that's looking good. Other than that, we are waiting on parts, so yeah. All right, we're all ready to put the intake on. Word of advice, those little rubber gaskets that come with the intake kit, don't use them. Everybody says that. 99.999% of the time they're going to end up blowing out and leaking like crazy. So what you want to do is get some good gasket maker, not the orange or the red shit. Put a nice 1/4 inch bead on the china wall here. Let that tack up a little bit and carefully set your intake on there. And it should be a guaranteed seal. And typically we'll put a little bit around the coolant ports as well, just for good measure. Ready to drop this puppy on?
Yep.
Okay, it's good to have a buddy when doing this to help keep guide her into place. Kind of want to drop it straight down and not have to wiggle it around too much as to mess up your china wall bead. You can see all the gasket material smushed out. That's what you're looking for. If your material does, or gasket material doesn't smush out, that means you didn't have enough on there and it's just going to be a leak, so you have to pull it off and redo it. But in our case, we got it right the first try. Almost like we've done it before. Perfect. All right, we'll get some bolts in here and then we'll crisscross applesauce, torque it down, and we should be good to go. Now I'm going to find that hardware. Give you a closer look on what that's supposed to look like. Nice and sealed. Same thing back here. I went a little overkill, but you're never going to see that anyway. But we know it ain't going to leak. Forgot to mention, you want to put marshmallow fluff on these bolts so they don't start leaking oil, coolant past the threads. Surgery, surgery. Alright, I just got the bolts snugged down for now. I'm going to let this RTV tack up for, I don't know, good 30 minutes probably. Then I'll come back through and torque them down to the proper torque spec, which is about right about there. So that'll be done. Alright, intake's on. Now we're going to work on that little goddammit right there. We're going to replace that. And then we will work on putting the oil pan gasket followed by the oil pan. And then this thing's just about ready to drop back into the engine bay, which is great. Oh yeah. Oh goodness.
We're gonna be pumping some in there anyways.
This whole thing. Yeah, that's the right gasket. Perfect. We're going to go ahead and torque our oil pump down to 65 feet-pounds. Perfect. That ain't going nowhere. Got our new oil pickup screen here. As you saw earlier in the video, we discovered this laying in the oil pan because it fell out. And I do not want that to happen again. So we're going to try and do this the correct way, if possible. What's going to be a good way to get this in here without damaging it? So that was probably the wrong way to do it, but we just put a vice grip on there, hit the vice grip with a dead blow, and it did knock it seated into place. And that ain't going nowhere, so tear me apart in the comments if you want. I really don't care. It worked. If it's dumb, is it? If it's dumb, is it? Or if it works, is it really a dumb idea? Or am I just dumb because I can't talk? Alright, now it's time to install the pan. First things first, around the front timing cover seal where it meets the block, and also the rear main seal. Actually, I'll bring it in here and give you a look. Right in here on both sides. And then back here is a 2-piece rear main seal. We got to schmooze some RVT in there. And then the rest of the gasket is designed to go in dry. And it should not leak. Fingers crossed. So here we go.
You're gonna put a little bead through here too, right?
I'm just gonna go all the way around this and the rear main seal just for, it's cheap insurance. You know, they say you don't have to, but it's not gonna hurt anything to put a little extra sealant on there.
We've made that mistake before.
What do you mean, your Firebird?
I've made that mistake before. Are you threatening me?
Are you threatening me? All right, Jeff's gonna snug those down by hand. We'll let it set for a little bit, let that RVT stiffen up, and then we'll go through and torque them in crisscross applesauce fashion. All right, oil pan's on and torqued. Intake is on and torqued. Pretty much to the point where we're waiting on them valve covers, but I think we're gonna throw the spark plugs in and the exhaust manifolds for now. And I'm still waiting on paint to dry for the water circulator, and then we can throw that on. So yeah, we are moving along pretty good. This thing is starting to look like an engine again. I definitely am digging the black oil pan and timing cover over the chrome. I, for one, don't really like chrome, a lot of chrome on an engine, but considering this is an Impala and it's not mine, we're gonna want some chrome on there to match the bumpers and whatnot. So I think I'm gonna throw all these manifolds and stuff on and play the waiting game. I guess we could throw the old valve covers on for now, just to drop the engine down into the bay, just to keep any foreign material getting in there. Okay, it's been the next day. Some more parts showed up. Got our water pump here painted. That's dry. We're going to throw that on. Valve covers will be showing up today at some point, but either way, we're probably going to drop the engine in before that. And yeah, just keep going from there. I've enlisted Jeff and his daughter Aria to install the water pump because I don't know how to do it and they're the experts.
Yep. Sandblast real quick.
Yeah.
Done.
Got her? Mm-hmm. Nice. Good job. Thank you. All right, we got our manifolds on. Looks really, really nice. I just used some high temp stove and grill paint. It's made to bake on after you heat it up, or heat up the manifolds. I've used it in the past, seems to work pretty well. More than that other stuff that claims it's high temp and it just burns off immediately. Water pump's torqued down. I think we're almost ready to, drop it right in there at this point. Maybe we'll throw that water pump pulley on quick once, just so we're not leaning over the hood trying to throw all that stuff on. All right, we are getting ready to drop this puppy in here. Pulling this off, and then we're gonna put her 16 feet in the air and drop her. All right, engine is in. Boy, does it look pretty. Yeah. Night and day difference. All right, we're gonna probably put her up in the air, tighten the rest of the bell housing bolts, bolt the exhaust up, torque converter, all that good stuff. I think we got her all buttoned up down here. Jeff just sprayed the underneath here with some black. Looks pretty nice. Engine looks nice and good in there. All clean. We did wrap this downpipe here. He was having heat soak issues with the starter. You'd go to start it after a long drive and it would just click. That's typically a sign of heat soaking. And I'm hoping that this exhaust wrap will help with that. We're gonna drop her back down and start putting some accessories on. Well, good morning. It has been a couple days. I got a little bit more done off camera. My GoPro ran out of space, so I wasn't able to record putting the water pump valve covers on, stuff like that, which no big deal, pretty straightforward. Right now I'm working on putting the carb back on. Now this intake is a spread bore, which is set up for quadrajet, and the two front barrels are regular sized and the rear barrels are oversized, hence the word spread barrel. Well, the carb that is on here is a square bore, as you can see, because of the way that it is. So we are going to put the proper adapter plate on for that, which ain't gonna hurt much not having that on there, but it ain't correct. So we want to do this thing justice. A lot of things were done wrong on it, and we want it to leave here, right as possible, I guess you could say. But I gotta find some hardware for this, make a gasket or two, and slap this carb on. Also, another issue I'm running into is I got taller valve covers. Now the alternator doesn't want to fit where it used to. I have another bracket here, or coming here later today, that goes from here down to the water pump rather than there, so we should get some more travel out of it. That means I'm going to have to get a longer belt, which is whatever. I'd rather just get a longer belt than have to, mount this alternator over here, which would be more time consuming and more costly. Anyway, it's looking good. Not much further now, and we're going to have this thing licked up and cruising. Unfortunately, it's down in the 50s again, so it's not exactly convertible weather, but either way, we're going to take this thing for a little spin, make sure it's all good to go. So yeah, I'm going to get to it. Alright, carburetor's on, got the linkage hooked up. I think we're going to move on to the radiator, get that in. And then we're basically just going to be waiting on that bracketry. Probably throw the battery in. Fuel lines I got to hook up. Spark plug wires, and I am going to leave the distributor unplugged, or the coil I should say. I want to crank this over with the key, get some oil pressure built up, because you know we had this thing drained. Any engine that's been sitting for a little bit or worked on, you're going to want to build that oil pressure. The worst thing you want to do is a dry start. So I'm going to get this radiator in and get her moving. Alright, radiator's in. Got some fuel lines plumbed. I think now I'm going to move on to the spark plug wires. And then I'll dump some oil in it and crank the key, or throw the battery in, crank the key, build some oil pressure. And I might have to run to town. I need to get new coolant. I don't want to dump the old stuff back in there. Yeah, there's probably a couple other things I'm going to have to get, but I'm going to get them spark plug wires on, get some oil in here, get the battery in, twist on the key. Alright, let's twist on the key, see if we can build some oil pressure. Well, the gauge went up after I let off. Oh, there we go. Went right up to 50.
Nice.
All right. Oil pump should be good and primed.
Harmonic balance or pulley? It's a little
Yeah, well,
wobbly.
60 years of being beat up, you're gonna have that. All right, well, we're kind of waiting on that alternator bracket. That should be showing up today. I did order that straight one.
Okay.
All right, so ran into an issue with the starter. Somebody wired this up very poorly back in the day, and the jumper wire that goes to the starter relay, or solenoid rather, was in line with the power to the coil, so they were fighting over amperage. So either the starter would click or we wouldn't get ignition right away, and it would just kind of jump back and forth. So to solve that, we have to put in a 4-pin relay so that we can jump this relay and still get a constant 12 volts to the starter solenoid, and we don't have the clicking starter issue. So we're gonna mount this guy right up here, run the wiring accordingly, and we should be able to crank this thing over without issue. Give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. Good, good. You hear that slight delay there? Now it's probably not going to do it because I'm recording. Anyway, it would just click like we have a dead starter, and that's the issue we're trying to repair here. You'll just have to take my word for it. Got the relay neatly installed on the firewall. Got to clean up some wiring here, but did indeed solve our issue. Perfect contact every time, so problem solved there. Luckily this is a 65, so it needs like 3-4 wires and the thing will run, so it was pretty easy to track down the issue, fortunately. That's why we like working on this old stuff. But need to get the water pump pulley and fan on, coolant hose, still waiting on the alternator bracket. Had to order a special size belt. Hopefully that works. Got to wait till tomorrow to get that. And we really can't run it long without that belt because it powers the water pump. So kind of dead in the water once we get that all done. Alright, guys and ghouls, we are pretty much as far as we can get. Just waiting on that belt and alternator bracket, and this thing's ready to go. That relay fixed the starting issue. Show you right now, this puppy should fire right up. Got the timing roughly set by ear, but it's pretty good. I'm not going to let it run long without that water pump. But yeah, runs like a sewing machine. Just needs a little bit more timing tuned into her, and should be good to go. But I think we're going to shut her down here. I really have no choice but to shut her down. I'll probably go back at her tomorrow and we'll see you then. Good morning. It's the next day. 13 trips to the parts store. I finally got a belt that's going to work. Requires a 56-inch belt. Leaves just enough room for adjustment. Now, our issue is, as you can see, the alternator is about 2 miles too far back that way. Plus, this bracket we got here needs a bend or two in it. We're gonna have to bend it like this and then bend it back this way to sort of match that bend down there. Now the original bracket, which bolted there, did not have enough extension to clear the new taller valve covers. So this new bracketry solved that issue, but I needed to get a new belt. Kind of a headache, but I finally got it. So I have to bend this and then also shim the starter forward. And by doing so, a nice little trick is you can take a straight edge, put it against your pulley, and you can see I need to come over about 1/4 of an inch. Or yeah, I need to come ahead this way 1/4 of an inch so that this belt doesn't get thrown every time, you know, we put some RPMs into it. So I am going to bend that bracket. Well, actually, I'm going to shim the alternator forward first, then bend the bracket so I don't have to bend it twice. Here we go. Alright, as you can see, that worked out pretty swell. I mean, it ain't perfect, but it'll work. Well, I guess we'll have to run it to see if it works, but I will dump some coolant in here, and then we're going to twist on the key, let this thing burp the air out, and hopefully it doesn't throw that belt. We can put her on the road, see how she does. Hopefully it's not leaking a quart of oil a mile like it was. Alright, got her topped off with coolant. I'm going to see how she does on a cold start. Nice. Oh, that crank pulley is it's wobbling like a drunk guy on a Thursday night walking through town. Other than that, I'm gonna let it warm up. I'll set the timing. Hopefully the thermostat opens up, shouldn't be a problem. It opened up before. Yeah, overall, so far so good. Got any leaks? Yes, we do. Looks like power steering, maybe. Oh, false alarm. Just condensation coming from the exhaust manifold gasket. I'm going to let this warm up for a while and give you an update. Had to shut her down. I noticed this belt started smoking. And I looked and the alternator pulley was not spinning. It was catching right on the fins here on the bracketry, so I had to take it to the bench grinder. Spins freely now, so I'm going to start her back up. Alright, she's been running for 10 minutes or so. The thermostat just opened and it burped a bunch of air out, burped coolant out. Luckily it came out the front and not all over the clean engine, because I've had that happen before. It really sucks. But as you can see, we got around 40 pounds of oil pressure and we're about 180. Nice and warmed up. Well, I'm going to go ahead and set the timing. Got our timing light all hooked up. I'm going to see what we got. Okay, right now we're right at about 14 degrees advanced. It's nice to have one of these timing lights with the dial. It makes it a lot easier and faster to check your advanced timing. You can get the ones with the push button, but you sit there all day pushing the button. This one you can just whoop right up to whatever you need. But I'm going to leave it at that, and as long as it restarts okay when it's hot, we're just going to leave it at 14 degrees. It's actually pretty neat because I set that by ear and I got it pretty much right on first try. Alright, I'm going to shut it off and then try restarting it. If it starts hard, we need to take a little timing out of it. Oh, perfect. That's what we want. I want to clean up some stuff here and I think we're going to take it for a test drive. Everything is good to go. It's not leaking anything. Stays at a good temperature. Oil pressure is great. So I think we're going to throw the hood on. And then lastly, take it for a test drive. She's a beauty now. Wow. I am happy with that. Hopefully the customer is too. Oh! I almost got that on camera.
What, me dying?
Yeah. Hell yeah, I love working on this old stuff. Well, good morning. It has been a few days. As you saw in the last clip, we put the hood on and we were going to take it for a test drive, and naturally, because we're here in Wisconsin, it started raining. And it rained some more, and then it rained some more, and then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So anyway, So you can see we finally got some sunny weather, which means convertible weather. So I'm just gonna do a little quick check over on this thing, and then we're gonna hop in it, dust the cobwebs off, make sure we have no leaks. And yeah, maybe we'll go to Las Vegas, because I am a big Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas fan. No, we're not gonna go to Vegas, but either way, I'm a big fan of that movie, and this car just screams. Get a very fast car with no top and go to the desert. Let's take a look at this thing. Oh, this thing just turned out amazing. Pretty happy with it. We ran it, put some heat cycles into it. Nothing seems to be leaking. The one leak I did have, I forgot to tighten that hose clamp there, and it was leaking gas a little bit, but I caught it soon, luckily. Not that it started doing that down the highway and then we'd have a fire, which is never good. But yeah, I think we're gonna hop in this thing and take it for a nice test drive, and then I can get it out of here and then on to the next project. All right, fluids are all good. Let's see how she does on a cold start. Give her the old 3-pump chump. Wow. Around 40, 45 PSI, or no, 50. Nice. Sure that'll go down to like 40 when we're warmed up, but perfectly normal, plenty of PSI to run. Neat little fact, you only need about 10 PSI for an engine to run. Anything lower than that, it starts getting a little hairy. I'm gonna let this thing warm up a little while, and then we're gonna hit the road. Just the purring. I might bump the idle up a little bit. It's kind of low, but with this kind of vehicle, you want to kind of be low and slow. So it's just a cruiser, not a race car. All right, you ready to go? Good, me too. Got my Fear and Loathing Beetlejuice style shirt on. I got my aviators. Don't got the fishing hat, but Tales from the Crypt will have to do. Oh, I forgot to put beer. You want some? How about some ether? Never mind. We gotta get out of here. This is backcountry. Please remain in your seat, sir. You'll be fine. Took too much, man. Too much. You get that, let that stuff get right to you. Wow, this is a nice cruiser. Don't know if I ever own one myself. You know, I'm more of a sportier kind of guy, but something like this would be a great weekend cruiser. I can see why the owner bought it. We're gonna tootle this thing around on the country roads, shake it down, make sure we don't have any issues, and send this thing on down the road. Of course, we're gonna take a little stroll through the cemetery, because why not? Even the dead need a good view. It's weird driving a car this big. The freaking hood and the trunk are longer than first day in third grade, if you know what I mean. Well, guys and ghouls, I really appreciate you watching. It was kind of a last minute recording. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned a thing or two, or maybe you learned what not to do. But that's going to do it for this episode. I'm going to enjoy the nice weather, and we'll see you very soon.